For this demo, I want to focus on navigation and take a look at some of the CSS options for formatting navigation without having to get into imagery. By the end of this session, we'll have some navigation in that's both functional and visual. To start, of course, I've got my regular HTML skeleton in place. I've got it all the way down to, I've got a container, I've got a header, a navigation, a couple of columns of information, and after all of that, I've got a footer. Now the columns right now just simply say column 1 stuff and column 2 stuff. Generally speaking, I would put paragraphs, images, videos, maybe even, for right now, some lorem ipsum. But just for the sake of keeping things simple in this video, I want to just keep it short and sweet. The CSS is pretty standard. I've got my regular container, header, nav, column 1, column 2, and footer. And I'll simply be adding my navigation properties and values to this video. So to start, I'm going to go to my navigation div. Right here, I've just got ... in there for right now as a placeholder. And I want to take that out, put in a few line breaks here just to place in some content, and go ahead and drop in a few buttons. Say home, about, products, locations, and contact. And I'm dropping each one of these on their own line just to make it convenient to see right now. I would go ahead and drop on the anchor tag for each one of these to make the link go to the appropriate page. It's the anchor a space href equals, and then the file name that you'd like it to go to, assuming all of these are or will be in our root folder. And I haven't made these pages, and I won't even get there all the way for this demo, but I do at least want to put a link on for each one of these, and this is a good opportunity to review how we make links also. I'm going to copy and paste each one of these opening and closing tags, and I'll go in and actually update the file names. I'll save my work, and if I run out to look at this in my web browser, I've got something that looks like this. I've got a header, I've got my navigation bar, my columns, and my footer down here. My navigation bar is pretty standard. The font is Times New Roman, the size is 12 point, and the color is blue and underlined. The only exception is the home link, and that's purple because it's a visited link. It's a page that I've been to already today. It's actually this page. So my links are the standard link colors, and that's what I wanted to go about fixing today. So let's pop over to our CSS file. And for the first time, really, I want to look at the cascading part of cascading style sheets. I could go ahead and reformat all of my anchor tags and just do something like this. But in this specific case, I want to say all of the anchor tags within the nav div. All the anchor tags within the nav div. And it would look something like this. Nav space A. And any properties and values I put inside of here will affect all of the anchors inside of the div called nav. Now we can start with a few basics, maybe something like a font size. I'm going to bump this up to about 14 point. I could do a color. I'm going to make these black. Let's save that and see what sort of difference we get. And already we're seeing, a difference here. Still doesn't look great, but we're going to fix that with CSS. So a few properties and values you may not have seen before. Font weight is bold. I'm going to make that bold so the text will be thicker. I'm also going to put in something called line height. Line height. And the line height normally should match the height of your navigation div. Now, if I go back and look at my navigation div, I can see that I gave it a height of 40 pixels. I'm going to set my line height also to 40 pixels and show you what it does here. Refresh that in my browser. By making my line height the same height as the navigation div, it centers vertically my text. That's exactly what I want to see. So it's a nice little trick for most navigation bars. I'm also going to drop in text decoration none. And that should take the underline completely off of my links. One last basic. I'm simply going to change the font family to Tahoma. If I could spell Tahoma, there we go. And there we go. We've got a completely different look to our navigation bar as we do the rest of the design. Now there's a few issues here, obviously, with spacing. I can see that there's not quite enough space from the left edge. I'd like to bump this entire text over from the left, and I'd also like to put some space in between each one. I could put in a generic, we could do margins or padding, and we're going to see from example here that we actually want to use margins instead of padding. I'm going to drop in a margin left of 25 pixels. And it gives me a 25 pixel margin right in here. And it does it on every link. Remember, we're affecting every anchor tag within this navigation div. So I can tweak that number if I'd like. But really quickly, I want to show you the difference between margins and padding. Okay, notice if I move my mouse between each one of these buttons, it's not active. If I change that to padding, it will be. If I do padding instead of margins, my link is active over here. Now that poses a problem if we keep these numbers as is, because when I roll my mouse over right here, I'm very close to the home button, but I would actually be activating the about button, because the about button has the text and 25 pixels to the left of that text. So we don't really want to use padding for something like this. Remember, padding adds space on the inside, margin adds space on the outside. So if we do margin, it puts the space outside of the link, which means it's not clickable. And that's what we want. Now the next problem I'd like to solve is I would really like to put more space between each one of these. If I simply do a margin, it's going to add the space on all four sides, top, right, bottom, left. So the easiest answer here would be to add a margin right. I don't want to affect this left edge, so my margin left would be consistent, but I could add a margin right and it would add space to the right of each one of these buttons. So if I try this, margin right, I'll add in 50 pixels, and it spaces my buttons out accordingly. I still have 25 to the left of each one and 50 to the right. So how much space do we have between each button? If you said 75 pixels, you are right on the money. We have 50 to the right of each button, 25 to the left of each button, so we have 25 and 50 in here. You can always tweak these numbers to match what you want, but this is a pretty good start to at least get a consistent space between each button and have a left margin as well. One last feature for this demo is I want to create some sort of rollover or hover effect. Now you've learned in the past sessions that we can achieve a hover effect with imagery and JavaScript. So you can write a little JavaScript function that will help you create a rollover effect with two images. We can also achieve this with Dreamweaver by using the Insert Rollover Image menu item, and that makes life a little bit easier for us because it takes care of all the JavaScript. But there's a more efficient way. We can do all of our CSS, or all of our rollovers via CSS. It's a little selector type called hover. We could do something like this where we say nav a : hover. Now the word hover simply means rollover. So if we wanted to do something different on the rollover, like the color of the font, for example, we could change our color to, let's do 555. It should make it a gray. So now when I roll over, it rolls over gray. Not the greatest looking color effect in the world, but at least it does show you what's happening. Now we can put anything we want inside of this hover effect. You could change the font size, you could change the color, you could make it bold or italics, you could adjust the placement with margins and padding. There are many things you can do. If you want to put the rollover effect back on, for example, you could say text decoration is underline. Now, when I hover over each one of these, not only does it change color, but it also underlines the text. So, just about anything you can dream up as far as CSS goes can be achieved in your rollover effect. So something like this, where the effect is a little bit more subtle. We've got a really dark gray compared to our black. We've got the underline going. We could also just do a simple color effect like we started with. Maybe I'll change those rollover colors to white so we can see a very drastic change on that rollover. A little too contrasted for my taste, but you get the point. Now, in addition to hover, there are a few other type of anchor selector types. And I'm going to put these in the correct order because there is a particular order to this. We could do nav a link, we could do nav a visited, and we could also do nav a active. Now notice I'm not really putting any properties or values in here. I don't really want to change the effect on each one of these four types of hover or of anchors, but I at least want to show you that these are possible. These are the four subsets. A link is the default. That's what a link should look like when it has not been visited yet and it's not being hovered over or clicked. That's the default. That's kind of like what we did up here. When we didn't specify what anchor type, we're saying all anchor tags. No matter what, I want that font size to be this, and the color to be this, and the font weight to be this. So we are absolutely determining all the anchors, no matter what the state is, are going to get these. So we didn't put anything after the anchor. But we can specifically say when it's not being made active, it's not clicked, it's not being hovered, that's simply a link, and that's your default. A visited will change the effect of the link after it's been visited, after it's been clicked on. Generally speaking, that's purple. So you can change the visited link if you'd like here. Hover, we've already gone over. And the fourth and final one is active. And active is one that's not extremely important because it's rarely seen. The active state is as you're clicking that button. In most cases, when you're clicking the button, you're actually going to another page or going somewhere else. So if you're just talking about basic links, active isn't very important because by the time you see the active link, it's gone. You're gone to another page. So out of the four, active is the least important. Now you can use 1, 2, 3, or all four of these if you choose. If you do use all four, there is an order that they must go in, and you're looking at it right here. Link, visited, hover, and active. Those are the proper order, or that is the proper order for these anchor subsets. So if you're planning on using all four, by all means, you have to use this order. If you only want to use hover, all you have to do is simply take out these others, and that's all you need. You don't have to put all this unnecessary code in. So to quickly summarize here, we've done a lot of formatting with our navigation today simply by adding some CSS. The cascading portion of cascading style sheet simply means that we can put in a div ID and then put a tag or a class name afterwards, and it will only affect the anchor tags inside of this div. We saw a lot of effects we could put on to change the default look of our links, as well as a cool hover effect. And I'll leave you with one parting thought. In the past, we've used JavaScript to make image rollovers. You can also make image rollovers with CSS by using background images. That's something I'll challenge you to try on your own, but by simply putting in the background image property and specifying what the background image is, you can create the exact same image rollover effect without any of the JavaScript. It's a phenomenal, efficient type of code. So there you go. I hope that clears up a little bit about links, both with formatting and with the hover effect. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.